It's been 3 weeks since the shocking death of 18-year-old Anna Kepner aboard the Carnival Horizon cruise ship in the Caribbean, starting back on November 2nd in Miami. No arrests, no charges yet. But for the first time, Anna's biological grandparents have broken their silence.
He was in a room with her. He was the only one seen coming and going. So I can't accuse him because I don't know what happened in that room. But the summation would be that he was an emotional mess. He couldn't even speak.
We thought it'd just be calls for justice and heartbreak, but things took a whole different turn. Major changes in the story emerged. They were actually on the cruise too. Something many folks didn't even know. What they witnessed is downright shocking, and it completely contradicts what other family members, and even what we've heard from authorities, have been saying about how the girl disappeared and who was last with her. Why the massive inconsistencies in these accounts? Who's lying here, and what's the real motive behind it all? Stick around as we dive deep into this true crime puzzle. The changes in the narrative. For what we knew before, they confirmed they were on the 7-day Caribbean cruise with their son Christopher, his wife Chantel, and the grandkids, all enjoying family time. Anna was sharing a stateroom with her biological brother and her 16-year-old stepbrother, which aligns straight with the blended family setup we've heard about from the start. No distinctions between bio and step kids. They described the morning of November 7 when everything flipped. An announcement called for a medical team to the cabin, and they recognized the room number right away. The housekeeper found Anna's remains concealed under the bed, wrapped in a blanket and covered with life jackets, pulled back the mattress to discover her there around 11:17 a.m., just like the initial accounts laid out.
They called for a medical alert team to go to a stateroom. And when they said the number, I recognized the number immediately. The room steward that was going in to clean the room is the one that found her.
She was found concealed under the bed. I was told that she pulled back the mattress and found Anna. The FBI contacted my son and family and told us her cause of death was asphyxiation.
They echo the cause of death as asphyxiation and stress that her remains showed no signs of sensitive assault and no controlled substance in her system, and were in perfect condition when taken to the medical examiner's office. This matches the Miami-Dade medical examiner's ruling on November 24 and what the FBI told the family earlier. Shifting to the shocking differences in their story, compared to what the family and media have put out before, the timeline around the casino stands out.
We had dinner. Anna wasn't feeling well. She just said, "Mima, I think I'm going to go back to my room for a little bit." And she must have felt better because she got dressed up and she came down. We were playing in the casino. She didn't win anything, and she said, "Mima, I love you guys. I'll see you later." And we never saw her again after that.
They detail Anna leaving dinner on November 6 because she wasn't feeling well, complaining about her braces, heading back to the room briefly, then feeling better, getting dressed up, and coming down to the casino a few hours later. She played but didn't win anything, said, "Mima, I love you guys, I'll see you later," and that was the last they saw her. Yet, we see from various family statements and media timelines that Anna headed back to her room after dinner due to not feeling well and then didn't return afterward. But this contrasts sharply with the grandparents' account of her reappearing at the casino, which, if true, could narrow down the suspects even further by limiting who had access to her after that family interaction, potentially focusing the probe more tightly on those sharing the cabin, like the stepbrother seen coming and going. This raises questions about possible cover-ups if the casino return is accurate, especially given the blended family's tensions and the FBI's tight-lipped approach, as it might explain why early narratives omitted or downplayed her movements to protect certain details or individuals during the investigation handover on November 8. Their presence on the cruise itself catches some off guard. Folks didn't realize the paternal grandparents were there, witnessing things firsthand. And they position Barbara as a stable mother figure for Anna amid her dad's changing wives, like a merry-go-round. While early reports noted the grandparents in the group, this interview amps up their role, revealing they had an extra bed available in their room if needed, and they were right there in the casino with the family. When it comes to the stepbrother, they paint him as close to Anna, like brother and sister or even two peas in a pod. Good student who played soccer, very quiet, but dealing with demons from his past. This contrasts with other family angles, like court documents from November 17, where Chantel invoked her Fifth Amendment rights over a potential criminal case against her minor child, hinting at him as a suspect. It also differs from claims that Anna had complained about his behavior before, or the ex-boyfriend's story of a 3 a.m. FaceTime call 6 months ago where the stepbrother allegedly slid into the frame while she slept, got scared when called out, and ran off, with footsteps heard through the house. The emotional side they share adds layers not in the initial reports. Barbara sat in on part of the stepbrother's FBI interview, describing him as an emotional mess who couldn't even speak, couldn't believe what had happened. This goes beyond the earlier mentions of him being hospitalized for psychiatric observation after docking on November 8, then released and now in counseling with a December 1 appointment, claiming no memory of events. About the victim, Anna comes through in their words as the straight-A high school senior, cheerleader dreaming of the University of Georgia, and joining me after May graduation, bubbly and outgoing, a tiny 110-pound girl, but mighty with real purpose. Reliable and close-knit with everyone, repeating the family portraits we've seen since the news broke on November 8. They're hoping for healing as a family, whatever happened in that room, and justice according to the law, leaving it to the courts, while still waiting on the full autopsy and toxicology reports. Barbara adds that knowing how she died helps a little, but it won't bring her back, and they're desperate for answers, unable to fathom why this happened, which lines up with the overall family push for closure since the celebration of life on November 19 and the funeral on November 20, where folks wore bright colors in her honor. Raising questions about the timing of this interview, why it came out around November 25, more than 2 weeks after Anna's death on November 7 and right after the homicide confirmation on November 24, why the delay in breaking their silence. The FBI took over on November 8. Court docs surfaced on November 17 suggesting a suspect, but the grandparents only spoke now, perhaps waiting for the medical examiner's input, or to avoid interfering with the ongoing probe. They mentioned still not knowing exactly what happened, and maybe never will, which points to a lack of full info from the FBI as a reason for holding back. The FBI is known for keeping things tight, not commenting, which lets varying stories from family and media fill the gaps, leading to these inconsistencies. Bigger doubts swirl around why speak out precisely now, after the custody dispute highlighted the stepbrother as a possible suspect. It might be a way to clarify or push back against Chantel's court side of things, especially with the blended family tensions. Christopher married Chantel in December 2024, and the problems in the house increasing at that point. The grandparents, on the paternal side, seem protective of their son but careful in how they frame the stepbrother, adding to the sense of underlying conflicts. Public pressure could play in too, with the case gaining traction and calls for answers mounting. Or maybe new evidence like the bruises on her neck prompted them to share. The way they talk about the stepbrother mixes implication with caution. He was in the room with her, the only one seen coming and going on security footage. So the summation is that he did something, but they stop short of accusing him outright because they don't know what happened in there. They note his own words claiming no memory, and Barbara's observation of him as an emotional mess during the FBI talk, barely able to speak or process it. Yet they highlight positive traits close like siblings, good at school, soccer player, quiet nature trying to handle past demons. This attitude of subtle blame, pointing to him as the sole person responsible in that room, avoids aggressive calls for punishment, focusing instead on letting the law and courts decide. Desperate for answers but balanced in tone. This suggests potential rifts within the family, possibly fueled by Chantel. As the stepmother married recently, her court actions on November 17, invoking the Fifth to protect her adolescent child from prejudice in a potential criminal case, show a defensive stance for her son, the stepbrother. Meanwhile, the grandparents' words imply him without direct attack, perhaps countering her protective narrative while still acknowledging the footage and room setup. The stepbrother's now staying with maternal relatives in Hernando County, post-hospitalization and in counseling, hints at family lines drawing apart during the probe. Past issues, like Anna's reported complaints about his behavior or the ex-boyfriend's FaceTime account of him creeping in while she slept, underline tensions in the blended setup, with sleeping arrangements at home and on the cruise putting them in close proximity. Found new evidence. One strange point in this case is that even after a long period of time, the information about evidence is still very scarce, which raises a lot of questions for us about what basis the investigation is based on and what factors determine the suspects. We're piecing together the core details from what has emerged so far in the Anna Kepner investigation, starting with one of the most puzzling aspects: her remains were found without clothing. This discovery immediately sparked inquiries into whether she was in the shower when the attack happened. The housekeeper pulled back the mattress on November 7 around 11:17 a.m. and uncovered her wrapped in a blanket and covered with life jackets under the bed in the cabin she shared with her brother and 16-year-old stepbrother. Being undressed at the time of discovery suggests she might have been in the middle of bathing or preparing for bed, but it opens up darker possibilities. If she was showering, the perpetrator could have caught her off guard in a vulnerable moment, perhaps explaining the lack of immediate defensive signs, or why no one heard a struggle in the confined space of the ship. This detail forces investigators to trace back her last movements. After leaving dinner not feeling well due to her braces, heading to the room briefly, then dressing up and joining the family at the casino, playing 20 without winning, and saying goodbye before presumably returning to the cabin. If the attack occurred during a shower, water could have washed away some trace evidence like skin cells or fluids, complicating the forensic picture. We have to consider how this fits the ruled cause of death: mechanical asphyxia, likely from a bar hold with an arm across her neck, leaving bruises but no controlled substances or signs of sensitive assault in preliminary findings. The absence of clothes might indicate the killer removed them post-attack to stage the scene or hide something, but without full toxicology and autopsy reports, it's hard to pin down if the shower theory holds or if it points to a more calculated act. Building on that, the circumstances around how her clothing was removed stand out as another critical thread. Questions swirl about whether she undressed herself for a shower or if the perpetrator forced it during or after the assault. Reports confirm no sensitive assault, which rules out one motive for disrobing, but it doesn't eliminate others, like attempting to clean up evidence or mislead the probe. If the clothes were taken off manually, there could be tears, stretches, or fibers indicating a struggle, especially given the bar hold method that would require close contact. Investigators would scrutinize those garments for DNA transfers, perhaps from sweat or skin contact during the removal. This ties into the timeline after her casino appearance. Dressed up and checking in with family, she likely returned to the room shared with the two teens. If she was preparing for bed or showering alone, the removal might be innocent on her part. But if forced, it suggests the attack escalated quickly in private. The blended family dynamic adds layers. Anna was close-knit with everyone, no distinctions between bio and step, but past complaints about the stepbrother's behavior hint at underlying tensions that could explain access and opportunity. Without the clothes' location or condition detailed publicly, this remains a gap, but it could reveal if the perpetrator panicked and hid them, or if they were left in plain sight, pointing to someone familiar with the room who didn't expect quick discovery. The FBI's review of devices and last photos for timestamps and clothing worn could clarify this, showing her state before the incident. Shifting to DNA on the life jackets, this emerges as a potentially game-changing piece. The items used to conceal her remains, life jackets piled on top after wrapping in a blanket, are under scrutiny, with experts noting they'd test these along with other room objects. If the killer exerted effort hiding her, sweating in the process, DNA like skin cells or hair could transfer, especially onto the life jackets handled last. This isn't just about presence. Since the stepbrother shared the room, his DNA anywhere else might be explainable. But on those specific items used post-mortem, it's harder to dismiss. Reports emphasize this as direct evidence. Touching them only to cover up would link directly to the act, not routine cabin use. The FBI informed the family of asphyxiation as the cause, with the medical examiner confirming homicide on November 24. Bruises on the neck matching a bar hold. No ongoing threat was noted on the ship, but the international waters jurisdiction means federal handling, reviewing all physical traces. If DNA matches the stepbrother, who was hospitalized psychiatrically after docking and claims no memory, it could seal the case. especially with him as the only one seen entering and exiting. Full analysis takes time, also aiming to rule out the 14-year-old brother in the room, ensuring no mix-ups in a space occupied by 3 teens. Another focal point is whether Anna's fingernails were broken or damaged. She had notably long nails, visible in images where her hand rests against a door, providing a clear view of their length. In a struggle involving a neck hold, those nails could have scratched the attacker, leaving DNA under them or breaking in the process. Investigators would check for any snapped or chicked ones, indicating resistance against the armbar. This matches the defensive wound angle. Long nails often yield strong evidence if there's skin or blood trapped beneath. With no controlled substances impairing her, Anna, a mighty 110-pound cheerleader with purpose, likely fought back, her straight-A reliability suggesting she wouldn't go quietly. If nails show damage, it corroborates a physical altercation, tying to the bruises and asphyxia ruling. The absence of such details publicly keeps us guessing, but it could differentiate accidental from intentional, especially in a cabin with limited space for escape. Closely related, we'd expect checks for half-moon scratches on the suspect. These crescent-shaped marks from fingernails are classic defensive wounds in chokehold cases, appearing on arms or hands. If the stepbrother has them, it would align perfectly with Anna's long nails during a bar hold struggle. Reports note examining the suspect's arm for such signs, like cuts or bruises from resistance. This could explain his hospitalization, perhaps to treat or document injuries under psychiatric cover. He's now with maternal relatives, in counseling with a December 1 appointment, but no public word on physical exams post-docking. If wounds match nail patterns, it's near irrefutable, especially without other explanations in the confined room. The family described him as quiet, a good student and soccer player dealing with past demons, close to Anna like siblings. But court docs from November 17 hint at a criminal case against a minor, with his mother invoking the fifth. That leads to why the stepbrother was hospitalized in the first place. This detail raises red flags, with no official explanation released. After the ship returned to Miami on November 8, he went straight to psychiatric observation, later released but claiming no recall of events. Was it shock from discovery, or something more, like hiding injuries from a fight? The emotional mess described during his FBI interview, where he couldn't speak or believe it, might mask physical traces. In a blended family with recent marriage in December 2024, tensions could surface, especially with Anna's past complaints about his behavior or the ex-boyfriend's FaceTime story of him creeping in at 3 a.m. while she slept, getting scared and running. Hospitalization might serve to evaluate mental state or conceal scratches, aligning with defensive wound checks. It's a lingering question, potentially tying to why he's off the radar. Not attending the November 20 funeral, where others wore bright colors in her honor. Did Anna open the door for the perpetrator? This hinges on keycards, dubbed a top overlook clue. These electronic keys log every entry and exit, like hotel systems, providing exact timestamps. If no external access shows after her casino return, it means the killer was already inside, pointing to cabin mates, specifically the stepbrother, as the only one logged coming and going. Reports confirm footage and key data show him alone in movements, with no others entering. Anna might have let someone in if a knock came, but logs would capture that. Without unfamiliar entries, it narrows to internals, reinforcing the room's isolation. The FBI's multi-line inquiry includes this data, combined with devices for last photos and behaviors, to lock the timeline. If she didn't open for anyone, it eliminates outsiders, focusing on the shared space where an extra bed was available in the grandparents' room but unused. Finally, does CCTV capture the crime? While no cameras are in private areas like cabins or bathrooms on cruise ships, systems cover hallways, public zones, and cabin doors. Real footage awaits release, but fakes have circulated, misleading viewers. It would show who approached the door, timestamps of movements, and confirm Anna's casino visit, leaving dinner unwell, returning dressed up, popping in without wins, and departing. Paired with keycards, it provides crucial chronology, anyone leaving unusually or entering oddly. Hallway cams: stepbrother exited post-attack, or if others neared. The ship's structure limits internal recording, but external views might catch anomalies. The FBI declines comments, keeping it close, but this combo could verify the grandparents' account and narrow access after her family goodbye, potentially exposing cover-ups if timelines clash. With the probe active but no charges, these elements, DNA, wounds, logs, build the case amid family grief and custody battles, like the December 5 subpoena for Christopher. What really happened with the FBI? What has happened in the weeks since Anna Kepner's death, with no fresh updates from the authorities, no arrests made, and zero explanations offered to the public? We're noting the FBI's role in this case, starting with their takeover on November 8, 2025, right after the Carnival Horizon returned to Port Miami. They stepped in because the death occurred in international waters, making it a federal matter from the get-go. The ship had departed Miami on November 2 with Anna, her blended family including father Christopher, stepmother Chantel, biological brother, stepsiblings like the 16-year-old stepbrother and a 9-year-old, plus paternal grandparents Barbara and Jeffrey, all set for a 7-day Caribbean trip. Anna, the 18-year-old cheerleader and straight-A senior, was found the next morning on November 7, her remains concealed under the bed in the cabin she shared with the 2 teen boys, wrapped in a blanket and covered with life jackets by housekeeping at 11:17 a.m. No ongoing threat was reported on the ship, but Carnival cooperated fully as the FBI assumed control, shifting the probe from local to federal hands amid the jurisdiction challenges of open seas. The FBI is actively digging into this homicide, poring over surveillance footage from the ship's cameras covering hallways and public areas, key card logs that timestamp every entry and exit to the cabin like a hotel system, electronic devices for last photos, timestamps, clothing details, and behavioral clues, plus forensic evidence such as DNA potentially left on life jackets, blankets, and other room items used to hide her remains. They've been tight-lipped about progress, but we know they're analyzing these elements to build a timeline and identify access points, especially since footage shows only the stepbrother coming and going from the room. No charges have been filed as of November 26, 2025, and no suspects officially named in public statements, even though court filings from Chantel's unrelated custody dispute on November 17 point to a potential criminal case against one of her minor children, specifically hinting at the 16-year-old stepbrother as the focus. That document sought a gag order and noted Chantel invoking her Fifth Amendment rights to avoid prejudice to herself or her adolescent child, describing the incident as a suspected murder. Attorneys for the stepbrother's biological father even subpoenaed Christopher to testify on December 5, potentially pulling more family details into the light under sealed conditions. The FBI did inform the family directly about the cause of death as asphyxiation, aligning with the Miami-Dade medical examiner's official ruling on November 24 that confirmed homicide by mechanical asphyxia, caused by other person or persons, likely from a bar hold like an arm pressed across the neck, with bruises noted there. Preliminary findings and the full autopsy and toxicology reports remain pending, her remains cremated per the death certificate. Despite sharing this with the family, the FBI has declined to comment on any details, from the investigation's speed and specifics to the cause breakdown or possible suspects. A stance echoed in reports and the grandparents' ABC interview, where they recounted sitting in on part of the stepbrother's FBI questioning, describing him as an emotional mess unable to speak or grasp what happened. A former sheriff's detective weighed in that this is classic FBI, keeping all their cards close to their chest, prioritizing diligence over haste, which fits their operational trend in high-profile probes, where rushing could compromise evidence. This cautious approach might give investigators nightmares in piecing together the puzzle, but it makes total sense for a professional, thorough process that demands time, steering clear of quick fixes that could derail things. We see this in how they've handled the blended family dynamics, with no public finger pointing despite the stepbrother emerging as the sole figure seen on footage accessing the room, his lack of memory claim, and the family's mixed statements. Grandparents calling him close to Anna like brother and sister, a good student and soccer player dealing with past demons, yet subtly implying he did something since he was the only one there. In similar past cases like John Bennett Ramsey, where a 6-year-old beauty pageant contestant was found strangled in her family's Boulder home basement on December 26, 1996, the FBI and local authorities dragged on for years, taking about 2 years just to convene a grand jury in 1998 that ultimately didn't indict anyone, amid botched crime scene handling and intense media frenzy focusing on parents John and Patsy as suspects before DNA in 2008 cleared them. That case lingered unsolved, with suspicions swirling around family members like Brother Burke, heavy reliance on DNA to implicate or rule out, and relentless public scrutiny that contaminated leads. Here in the Kepner case, a grand jury could be on the horizon sooner, indicating a faster pace overall. But still with that ironclad control on information flow to avoid the pitfalls that plagued Ramsey. We observe parallels with Ramsey and the family member's suspicions. The stepbrother here mirroring the brother's scrutiny there, plus the DNA emphasis to prove or exclude involvement. Like ruling out the 14-year-old biological brother in the shared cabin through forensic tests on life jackets and under Anna's long fingernails for skin or breaks indicating a struggle. Media attention has ramped up too. With the celebration of life on November 19 at Grove Church and funeral on November 20 drawing crowds in bright colors honoring her bubbly spirit. But the federal jurisdiction from the start in Kepner sets it apart, allowing tighter reins than the local federal handoff in Ramsey that led to delays and leaks. The stepbrother was rushed to hospitalization for psychiatric observation immediately after the ship docked on November 8, held briefly before release, and now he's in ongoing counseling with a scheduled appointment on December 1, all while insisting he has no recollection of the events that night after Anna's casino goodbye. This hospitalization could suggest a calculated move to buy more time for the investigation, giving authorities a medical pretext to encourage cooperation from the family and the potential suspect without immediate arrests or public grilling. It fits the pattern of concealing sensitive details early on, perhaps to shield the juvenile's identity from a media storm that could turn into a trial by public opinion, especially amid the blended family's strains. Christopher's recent marriage to Chantel in December 2024 creating step-sibling dynamics, past complaints about the stepbrother's behavior from Anna, and the ex-boyfriend's unverified account of a FaceTime call 6 months prior, where he saw the stepbrother slide into the frame while Anna slept at 3 a.m., called him out with, "What the hell are you doing in her room?" Only for the stepbrother to get scared and run off, footsteps echoing through the house as if caught in the act. Though the ex's reliability is questionable given the breakup, it adds to the underlying tensions. Like sleeping arrangements at home, putting him in proximity, which the hospitalization might help navigate privately. It affirms the FBI's drive to hide information that could inflame things, protecting the probe's integrity while dealing with custody battles. Chantel's divorce filings revealing the FBI's hint at charges against her minor, her staying silent to safeguard her child now with maternal relatives in Hernando County. The hospital stay might even conceal potential defensive wounds, like half-moon scratches from Anna's nails during a bar hold struggle, or facilitate private interviews away from prying eyes, all tying seamlessly into the FBI's tight-lipped strategy that prioritizes evidence gathering over updates, with international jurisdiction throwing in hurdles like the ship's rapid departure and evidence collection across borders. This tight control stops leaks that could snag the multiple lines of inquiry, from DNA on concealing items to ruling out assaults. The gag order request in Chantel's court case on November 17 directly aims to safeguard the FBI's work, clamping down on details that might harm her minor involved or taint the overall case, especially as subpoenas like the one for Christopher on December 5 loom, potentially unpacking more under controlled, sealed settings. The FBI's silence also aids in quietly ruling out innocence, such as the 14-year-old brother through targeted DNA tests, without sparking wild public guesses that could derail focus. Overall, this information lockdown proves crucial amid the blended family turmoil. Grandparents like Barbara witnessing the stepbrother's emotional breakdown in his FBI session, unable to speak as she sat in, contrasting his quiet, soccer-playing persona with those past demons he's trying to handle. We observe how the FI's method stands in contrast to the slower Ramsey timeline, where years passed amid bungled scenes and endless theories, here prioritizing solid evidence accumulation over feeding public demands for updates in the Kepner probe. Even as the custody hearing approaches and questions linger on why Anna's last casino moments with, "Mima, I love you guys, I'll see you later," led to such silence. Pause a minute and let's move out the investigation. Fake news has crept into the vacuum left by the FBI's silence, with fabricated CCTV footage popping up online to fill the gaps in public knowledge. These fakes often show supposed hallway scenes or cabin door activity, created by eager creators who manipulate clips to suggest timelines or suspects that don't hold up. For instance, some videos claim to capture Anna returning from the casino, or the stepbrother leaving the room at odd hours, but they're pieced together from unrelated ship footage, or even stock images, misleading viewers into thinking they've seen real evidence. We see how these spread quickly, distorting facts like the actual discovery of her remains under the bed, wrapped and hidden, and fueling wild theories about what happened after her last words to her grandparents. The rush for views triangulation to seeming reality, with edits that add dramatic music or annotations pointing to clues that never existed, like shadows interpreted as struggles or figures not on the ship. The FBI and authorities play a key role in controlling this flow, deliberately withholding real CCTV and other details to prevent contamination of the probe. By keeping surveillance footage, keycard logs, and forensic results under wraps, they avoid feeding the fake narrative machine, ensuring that when evidence like DNA from lichens or fingernail scrapings is released, it's untainted by public tampering. Police initially on the scene after Docking handed off to the FBI, who now manage the narrative tightly, as in their refusal to comment on progress or the stepbrother's hospitalization. We anticipate that processed info, real footage confirming who entered the cabin, timestamps matching the bar hold asphyxiation, will soon be provided to clear the air, perhaps through grand jury leaks or official briefs, countering the fakes that have muddied the waters for weeks. The dead-end precedent. One part of why the Anna Kepner case is being talked about a lot right now is because it almost repeats a similar motif to the JonBenet Ramsey case from 1996. But whether Anna's case will follow a dark ending like JonBenet's or not, and whether JonBenet's case can help answer some questions in the present. We're looking at how both cases unfolded in what feels like a locked room scenario, where the perpetrator had to be someone already inside. In the JonBenet Ramsey case, everything happened within the family's Boulder home on December 26, 1996, with no clear signs of forced entry. The house was locked from the inside, and windows showed no breaks that matched any intruder story. JonBenet's remains were discovered in the basement by her father John, right there in the home, not taken elsewhere, after a search that started with a supposed kidnapping. A 3-page ransom note found on the staircase demanded $118,000. Oddly matching John's recent bonus, written in a style that seemed too familiar, like it came from someone who knew the family intimately, logically pointing to an insider rather than a stranger scribbling in haste. Without CCTV or tracking devices, the entire timeline hinged on family statements from John, Patsy, and brother Burke, who were the only ones there that night. Early police mishandling of the scene, letting friends and family tramp through, moving items, opened the door to intruder theories, even though evidence like undisturbed cobwebs on windows didn't support it. Many experts concluded the killer was almost certainly a family member, given the contained space and lack of outside traces. Shifting to Anna Kepner, the incident played out inside a completely enclosed cabin on the Carnival Horizon cruise ship during that November 2025 Caribbean trip. The cabin sat on a vessel equipped with CCTV monitoring hallways, stairwells, and entrances, plus keycards logging every access like a hotel room. Anna was last seen leaving dinner on November 6, not feeling well due to her braces, heading back to the room briefly, then dressing up and rejoining the family at the casino a few hours later, playing without winning, saying, "Mima, I love you guys, I'll see you later," before presumably returning to the cabin and never emerging again. Her remains were found the next morning at 11:17 a.m. by housekeeping, hidden under the bed, wrapped in a blanket and covered with life jackets, in the same space where her 14-year-old biological brother and 16-year-old stepbrother slept. No evidence showed any stranger entering the cabin, instantly narrowing suspects to those inside. The room held just the three of them, Anna, the stepbrother, and the younger brother, all family, with an extra bed available in the grandparents' nearby room, but unused. These locked space motifs run parallel in both cases, where outsiders couldn't access without leaving obvious marks. The perpetrator didn't need to breach security or locks. They were already sharing the area with the victim, making any intruder tale hard to swallow. In both, the remains were placed or hidden in everyday living spaces, the basement for JonBenet, under the bed for Anna, suggesting a panic-driven cover-up rather than a planned removal. Family statements become pivotal without external witnesses, relying on what those inside recall or choose to share. Drawing from JonBenet, if a crime hits in such an absolute sealed spot, the suspect can't be from outside the family circle. Timelines depend on household accounts, so cross-checking with logs like keycards or CCTV in Anna's case could spot discrepancies. Much like how mismatched stories in Ramsey raised flags. Efforts to explain away knowledge with, "I don't know," "I don't remember," or "I was asleep," showed up often in JonBenet from the parents and Burke, and echo in Anna, with the stepbrother's own words that he doesn't recall what happened. The positions of the remains in shared family zones hint at a frantic hide job, a common thread of improvisation under stress. Family attempts to craft alternative narratives, like kidnapping in Ramsey or vague, "she went to bed," in Kepner, could signal deflection. Key differences make Anna's case potentially easier to crack. JonBenet lacked CCTV, keycards, tracking gear, or witnesses beyond family, dragging the unsolved mystery near 30 years with theories still swirling. Anna benefits from ship-wide CCTV, cabin keycard logs, and digital movement records, tightening the sealed space with data that clarifies suspects far more than the analog voids in Ramsey. Diving deeper into odd statements as cover-up signs, a repeating motif across both, the Ramsey case had several red flags. The ransom note stood out as overly elaborate, 3 pages long with phrasing that felt like household lingo, not a rushed criminal's work, suggesting someone sat inside composing it leisurely. The family reported a kidnapping initially, but the remains lay right in the house, creating a misleading setup that diverted the probe. Statements conflicted among members on basics: who slept when, who found the note first, who checked the basement, enough to fail polygraphs if taken. Emotional responses didn't add up. Burke smiled oddly and scratched his face during interviews, while the parents skipped some early questionings. Scene handling defied logic. John carrying the remains upstairs contaminated everything, and the basement door stayed open as people came and went. In Anna's case, similar unusual accounts emerge. The timeline shifted oddly. Early family claims had Anna heading to bed without leaving the room again, but grandparents later detailed her casino return, dressed up and bidding farewell, a mismatch reminiscent of Ramsey inconsistencies. The stepbrothers, "I don't remember what happened," line is a classic defense, possibly from trauma, panic post-act, or coached, neither denying nor admitting. His described reaction, an emotional mess, nonstop crying, unable to speak, fits post-event behavior in confined crimes. Not showing at the funeral raises huge flags in crime patterns. Family perpetrators sometimes avoid facing it, or get barred due to probe info. A clear anomaly either way. Grandparents noted him as the only one seen entering and exiting at key times, clashing with his no memory claim. Discovery by housekeeping, not family, echoes a silent room motif, insiders not reporting promptly. Knowing or suspecting, but letting outsiders find it. The remains hidden under the bed with blankets and life jackets show blatant concealment. No one reported her missing overnight in a shared cabin, odd for a close group, similar to Ramsey where hours passed without noticing JonBenet in the basement. Common motifs tie them shifting or inconsistent timelines, with each Ramsey member varying in Anna's casino detail revealed late. People in the right place give vague accounts. Burke not recalling night sounds, the stepbrother blanking entirely. Remains hidden in family spaces point to cover-ups, insiders discovering or not in weird ways, John finding quickly in Ramsey, staff in Anna. No one seeing or hearing, with cold reactions. Hours unaware in Ramsey's home, no alert in Anna's cabin despite missing a person. Alternative narratives appear, kidnapping deflection in Ramsey, she slept, no one knew, in Anna. We're examining the family background in the Anna Kepner case, digging into the history of trauma and potential motives that could have played a role in what happened on that cruise ship. The stepbrother's past stands out as an early red flag, with the grandparents describing him as having demons in his past. A phrase that points to childhood psychological scars, uncontrolled behaviors, emotional disorders, or unprocessed harmful experiences. Such traumas often lead to obsessive patterns toward others, sudden reactions in conflicts, or acts of harm followed by attempts to hide them. We see how the family confirmed he had been removed from the home environment at some point to protect other children, suggesting prior concerning actions that involved invading personal boundaries, with a risk of recurrence if placed close to Anna in the shared cabin. His quiet personality, very quiet young man, a good student but burdened by those demons, fits a profile where teens with trauma bottle up emotions, leading to abrupt outbursts or controlling tendencies. The blended family setup adds layers of ambiguity around possible mistreatment history, fueling hidden motives. Some whispers question the biological father's controlling or domineering ways. With an unstable past in relationships, though no legal proof exists, but the complex household could set a precedent for deviant behaviors, or an environment where kids pick up on them. Anna's loose tie to her biological mother highlights the disconnect. She wasn't notified of the death for 3 or 4 days, suggesting long-standing issues that left gaps in protection and let problems fester unchecked. Drawing parallels to JonBenét Ramsey, where rumors swirled about the father's prior mistreatment, though unproven in court, some forensic views suggested JonBenét showed signs of earlier harm, with the remains staged too cleverly and the ransom note revealing insider knowledge. Burke, the brother, had reports of previous violent acts, leading theories that kids replicate observed patterns, unconsciously copying if adults model them. This ties into scientific explanations for why a son might mimic a father's actions, like Albert Bandura's modeling behavior, where kids learn by watching authority figures repeating violence, control, or harm in disputes if seen at home. Mirror neurons create mental copies of others' actions, heightening replication in violent settings. Trauma reenactment sees kids reliving harms they've witnessed or endured as a way to regain control, common in abandoned or chaotic homes with demons like the stepbrothers. Displacement channels suppressed feelings from adults onto weaker targets, like a sibling, while attachment theory shows insecure bonds from neglect or conflict breed obsession, control, or strong reactions to rejection. Applying this to Anna, a teen with demons in his past plus an unstable family equals high eruption risk. The stepbrother's trauma, disruptive behaviors, and prior removal mix with the cramped cabin like a powder keg. If wrong models from adults existed, like control or invasion, he could echo them. The cabin's tight 9-10 square meters with 3 kids fosters brewing jealousy, obsession, or isolation-triggered clashes. Both cases share a motif of damaged families, murky histories, male-child trauma leading to outbursts then cover-ups. We turn to the entry-exit systems as pivotal in each. In JonBenét Ramsey, the lack of any tracking stalled it for 29 years, no CCTV in 1996 honed, no visuals of who entered, left, wandered halls, or opened the basement door, leaving timelines solely on family words. No key cards or electronic logs in a private house, so no precise records of door openings or movements. No clear intrusion traces, windows staged perhaps, no footprints or foreign prints, undermining the family's intruder claim. No outsiders spotted by neighbors on Christmas night, no witnesses to confirm external involvement. This void turned the case into a puzzle of conflicting statements, theories, and guesses, failing to pin suspects definitively and leaving it unsolved for decades. For more details about the evidence we got until now, in Anna Kepner, modern entry-exit systems make evasion harder. The Carnival Horizon CCTV blankets hallways, stairs, casino, dining, logging passenger moves continuously, ensuring no stranger slipped into the cabin unseen. Cabin keycards track who opened the door, when and for how long, providing physical proof to identify the last person with Anna, match CCTV, and eliminate unrelated parties. Footage confirms Anna entered but never exited after her casino return, narrowing it to insiders. Only 3 had access: Anna, the 16-year-old stepbrother, 14-year-old brother, with grandparents noting only the stepbrother moving in and out at critical times. The cabin's small size leaves no hiding spots for crimes without traces. Investigators can cross-reference CCTV, keycards, and death timing, Anna's entry, stepbrother's movements, motionless periods, hiding under the bed, to paint a digital picture Ramsey never had. Directly comparing, both occurred in sealed spaces, a private home and ship cabin, where victims couldn't leave alone, likely pointing to family perpetrators. The big difference: Ramsey's analog gaps led to 29-year deadlock, while Anna's digital CCTV and logs print full fabrication, exposing lies in timelines or scenes. DNA serves as the ultimate key in Anna Kepner. In such a tiny cabin, a struggle would scatter DNA. The bar hold on the neck likely left traces on her throat, under her long fingernails from resistance, sweat or skin on blankets, life jackets, mattress from hiding. The perpetrator handling to conceal would deposit prints, hair, fibers, epithelial cells while lifting, dragging, tucking the remains. Samples matter on Anna's remains: under nails, neck, wrists, arms from fighting, back of head if held hard, any contact zones. At the scene, life jackets around the remains could hold prints, cells, sweat, blankets, mattress, under bed area for hiding spots, her pre-death clothes, cabin floor from movement, inner door handles. The challenge is that the stepbrother lived there, so his DNA naturally appears on items. Investigators must distinguish everyday touch from violent force, analyzing ratios, locations, layers. Touch vs forceful. They'd check scratches on his arms for half-moon shapes, DNA from the 14-year-old to exclude, match to bruises, combine with CCTV and keycard timelines for solid conclusions. In John Bennett Ramsey, DNA got botched from the start. Father carrying remains from basement wrecked the scene, crowds traipsing through left chaotic traces, police not sealing properly let items get handled randomly, making sources untraceable. Touch DNA on clothes wasn't enough to charge, possibly secondary transfer not from the killer, stalling the case 29 years. Lessons for Anna is that keep family from the scene to avoid repeats, separate DNA into living vs attack types by position and force. Comparing roles, Ramsey's contaminated, mishandled, open scene left DNA useless for charging or excluding, case hanging. Anna's small cabin, few contacts, hiding spots mean DNA positions decide, behind neck for hold, under nails for fight, bed for concealment, life jackets for tucking. Not just presence but where it lands as behavioral DNA, mapping actions like resistance, choke, hide. Who is the victim? At the end of this analysis, let's also look back at an extremely prominent and infuriating issue, because it overshadows the justice that Anna deserves, the issue of victim blaming. Victim blaming pops up here, mostly tied to Anna's social media presence and her cheerleader role, where some folks jump to conclusions that her cheer outfits, or photos with that GICM vibe from the sport, might have drawn attention or caused misunderstandings, arguing she somehow contributed to the incident. It's the classic setup where society applies double standards to a young woman like Anna, an 18-year-old high school senior bubbly and outgoing, dreaming of the Navy. But her images get twisted into reasons why something bad happened to her. We see this in reactions that question her choices, like posting cheer routines or everyday snaps, turning them into excuses for the perpetrator's actions instead of focusing on the crime itself. Some audience responses and analysis mix up explaining the criminal's motive with blaming the victim, especially when discussing how Anna's social media might have triggered the suspect. But really, that's about diving into criminal psychology to figure out what the perpetrator was thinking and feeling, not pinning fault on her. For example, if the stepbrother had obsessions or issues from his demons in the past, analyzing that helps understand the dynamics without saying Anna did anything wrong. Public sensitivity runs high on this, with backlash when suggestions slip in like Anna sharing a room made her vulnerable, or parents should have foreseen risks, forcing disclaimers in discussions to clarify intent and avoid misreads. The principle holds clear that victims, especially teens like Anna, can't be responsible for others' criminal behaviors. She didn't cause or spark any obsession from a potential perpetrator, period. Shifting to who's at fault, the direct blame lands on the who caused the death. The one last with Anna in the cabin capable of applying the force that led to asphyxiation. With signs like the remains hidden under the bed showing deliberate concealment, not an accident, and all pointers lead to the stepbrother, as the only one entering and exiting at key times. Reports confirm he was in the room with her, the sole figure on footage moving in and out, and his no memory claim doesn't erase that setup. The family might carry indirect fault through negligence, like placing a 16-year-old with known past demons in the same room as an 18-year-old girl, failing to monitor boundaries in a blended family where bio and step kids mixed without distinctions, or not checking when Anna said she wasn't feeling well from her braces and headed back briefly before the casino. Abnormal behaviors post-incident add layers of potential error, such as not reporting her missing overnight despite sharing the tight cabin space, letting housekeeping find the remains instead of family spotting the absence sooner, and shifting timelines where initial accounts had Anna staying in after dinner, but later revealed her dressed-up casino return, playing 20 without wins, and saying goodbye. If concealment happened, the family could face violations like failure to report a death or child endangerment, with avoidance of media or timeline tweaks, possibly aimed at self-protection or shielding a relative. The parents bear scrutiny from social and legal angles. The father and stepmother didn't notify Anna's biological mother for 3 to 4 days after the death, holding back case details, raisings about guardianship duties, and how well they safeguarded Anna from the stepbrother's prior concerning behaviors, which she had complained about before. Psychology sheds light on why society leans into blaming victims, creating an illusion of safety by thinking the victim could have avoided it through different choices, like she wore that, or shouldn't have gone to the casino, a defense mechanism to believe we can dodge similar fates. In family crimes, people struggle to accept a loved one as the culprit, shifting fault to outside factors rather than facing that a family member could kill kin. When the perpetrator is a minor, society redirects guilt to the victim or parents, excusing with "had trauma" or "couldn't control it." But that doesn't alter the fact the victim bears no blame. Direct responsibility ties to who was last in the cabin with Anna, whose DNA might show on her remains, who hid them. Signals all aiming at the stepbrother, though legal closure awaits DNA and CCTV results. Indirect accountability falls on the father for rooming his daughter with a teen carrying past demons, the stepmother as direct guardian, and adults on the ship for not following up when Anna mentioned feeling unwell. We note how these elements build a picture of accountability without letting the victim take any hit. Anna didn't provoke criminal acts, had no activating behaviors, no proof of wrongdoing, and assuming her cheerleader role drew attention is straight victim blaming. The family's possible oversights, like the room arrangement in a blended setup married just December 2024, or not alerting sooner in the close quarters with 3 teens and an extra bed option, unused in the grandparents' room, highlight where prevention fell short. Reports detail Anna as reliable, close with everyone, no distinctions in the family. But that doesn't erase questions on why boundaries weren't tighter, especially with the stepbrother's history of being removed from home to protect others, and his quiet demeanor masking potential build-up. Public reactions amplify this, but the core stays on the act itself, not on Anna's life as a straight-A student with Navy plans. Diving deeper, the negligence angle ties to the crew's dynamics, the group enjoying time together, but adults not spotting red flags like the stepbrother's emotional mess in FBI talks or his hospitalization post-docking for psychiatric observation, released but in counseling by December 1. If parents knew of his demons and still roomed him with Anna, that points to lapses in safety judgment, echoing how the blended turmoil might have let issues simmer. The delayed notification to the biological mother underscores fractured ties, perhaps contributing to an environment where protection gaps existed. Society's tendency to blame victims stems from discomfort with random evil, preferring to think choices matter. But in true crime breakdowns, we stress that's a myth. Anna's cheer photos or casino visit don't justify harm. On fault after the fact, the lack of immediate missing report in a shared space raises eyebrows, similar to not checking the bed sooner or relying on staff to uncover the hidden remains, wrapped and covered. If the family sensed something off but delayed, that could cross into endangerment territory, protecting perhaps the minor involved. The father's subpoena for December 5 in the custody case hints at ongoing scrutiny on guardianship, while the stepmother's Fifth Amendment invoked on November 17 suggests awareness of risks to her child. These actions don't shift blame from the direct actor but show where indirect failures might lie. Psychology further explains the blame shift in juvenile perpetrator scenarios. Excusing with trauma doesn't negate the act, and society grappling with a teen's role often softens on them, redirecting to parents' upbringing or victim's supposed role, but facts hold the victim faultless. Direct pointers like soul cabin access, concealment effort, and potential DNA matches keep focus on the one responsible, awaiting forensic confirmation. Indirectly, the adult's choices in rooming and monitoring fall short, from not heeding Anna's unwell complaint to the overall blended setup lacking safeguards. We pull these threads to see the full accountability web, without literary flourishes, just the linear facts showing victim blaming as misguided and fault squarely on those who acted or failed to prevent. Anna's life, cheerleader, University of Georgia hopeful, Navy bound, doesn't invite harm, that's on the perpetrator and any enabling oversights. The family's public grief, from the November 19 celebration of life to the November 20 funeral in bright colors, contrasts with these questions, but true crime analysis demands examining where lines are blurred. Lesson: the FBI has remained tight-lipped, providing no operational updates except in rare circumstances, as noted in their statement from November 21, 2025. Everyone involved, from the family to the public, should hold off until the full autopsy and toxicology reports are released, expected around November 27, 2025. The grandparents have shared that they still don't know exactly what happened in that stateroom and might never fully understand, but they hold out hope for answers from the ongoing investigation. Father Christopher Kepner has expressed similar sentiments, saying he's waiting for FBI contact and knows as little as everyone else at this point. Biological mother Heather Wright is desperate for answers but has had no contact from the FBI, adding to the uncertainty. Experts like former FBI agent Steve Moore point out that these investigations take a long time, with no rush since there's no public threat involved. Carnival Cruise Line has directed all inquiries to the FBI's Miami Public Affairs Office, reinforcing the wait. We call for patience because federal juvenile cases move slowly to ensure evidence integrity. And as of November 25, 2025, no new developments have been reported, with the probe still ongoing. Potential investigations by the Department of Children and Families in 3 Florida counties may offer more insights, but those are pending as well. There are some positive signs emerging in the case that suggest progress toward resolution. The quick homicide ruling on November 24, 2025, following preliminary findings, has provided some closure on the cause being mechanical asphyxia, helping the family begin to process the loss. The FBI's full cooperation with Carnival allowed for efficient processing of the scene on docking day, November 8, 2025, using evidence response teams to secure what they could promptly. There's no related threat to safety aboard the vessel, according to both Carnival and the FBI, which has enabled the ship to continue its operations without broader disruptions. The family has focused on honoring Anna, holding a memorial on November 20, 2025, at Grove Church in Titusville, where attendees wore colors instead of black and placed flowers on her car, with tributes remembering her as Sunshine, who was bubbly and outgoing. The remains were in perfect condition at the medical examiner's office, effectively ruling out additional traumas and narrowing the focus. The stepbrother is under psychiatric care and counseling, which could address any mental health issues early and prevent further incidents. Public awareness from the case is increasing calls for better child protection on cruises and in families, potentially leading to positive changes. The grandparents express hope for healing and justice according to the law, while keeping the emphasis on Anna's bright future, including her plans to join the Navy as a straight-A student. The biological mother attended the memorial despite barriers, demonstrating determination for closure in her grief. Media coverage has captured national attention, pressuring a thorough probe that might yield stronger safeguards in the end. From this tragedy, there are important lessons about protecting children, particularly the responsibility parents have to observe, recognize, and prevent early negative signs from their kids. Parents must watch for signs of discomfort or unusual behaviors in children, such as emotional disturbances or aggressive imitation stemming from family violence, and intervene right away through counseling or separation to stop escalation. They need to recognize early indicators like past demons or patterns of aggression, preventing them by closely monitoring interactions, especially in blended families where unrelated males can increase risks. Social learning theory shows how children imitate aggressive patterns from parents, leading to behavioral problems that parents can break by modeling positive conduct. Responsibilities include reporting suspicions to authorities like the Department of Children and Families and addressing lapses in supervision, such as access to alcohol. The case teaches that ignored warnings about a child's behaviors can lead to dire outcomes, underscoring the need to foster open communication and reduce alienation, for example by keeping distant parents involved. Parents should acknowledge intergenerational transmission, where a history of mistreatment passes on harmful norms like identity diffusion or dissociation, requiring therapy to interrupt the cycle. Observing issues like sleep disturbances, withdrawal, or aggression as signs of violence exposure is key. To prevent harm between siblings, set clear boundaries, such as separate rooms if discomfort is known. Parents can be held culpable if they dismiss reports or allow risky arrangements like shared cabins. On a societal level, systems like the Department of Children and Families investigate, but parents are primary for daily oversight, ensuring kids aren't left vulnerable. Cases involving family harm are on the rise, with incidents where siblings cause damage to each other being rare but documented in 5 to 10% of domestic violence reports, often stemming from deeper household tensions. Sibling violence connects to observed family aggression, predicting antisocial behavior and substance use that can escalate conflicts. In blended families, unrelated siblings face higher risks due to less biological ties, fostering jealousy or competition that leads to issues. Statistics indicate 30 to 40% of children experience sibling harm, frequently underreported as normal, fighting rather than serious concern. Psychologically, low self-esteem mediates this violence to peer bullying, turning minor disputes into ongoing problems. Intergenerationally, exposure to parental violence normalizes sibling harm, making it harder to break patterns. True crime examples like the Menendez brothers illustrate how family tensions can result in sibling involvement in damage. Detection is difficult because such harm happens in private, dismissed as play, yet it causes long-term mental and physical effects. Risk factors such as divorce, custody disputes, and alienation heighten emotional instability, increasing the likelihood of these incidents. In the U.S., sibling harm accounts for 2 to 5% of child welfare cases, but it's understudied compared to parental involvement, leaving gaps in prevention. Measures to address these include parental monitoring apps to track interactions, family counseling to resolve tensions, and open discussions on behaviors to build trust. Educating through schools or Department of Children and Families programs on recognizing signs and encouraging reports to hotlines can help early detection. Separating risky interactions, like avoiding shared rooms if discomfort arises, is a practical step. However, difficulties abound. Blended family conflicts often distract from effective oversight, making consistent monitoring hard. The emergence of the internet has significantly reduced connections between parents and children, as social media isolates teens in online worlds where parents miss offline signs of trouble. Online exposure creates a false sense of safety, hiding real dynamics like developing obsessions that unfold digitally. It's difficult to track such interactions, leading to issues without seeming intrusive, and time constraints from work or divorces limit face-to-face bonding, with the internet filling the gap, but weakening emotional ties. Cyberbullying or online obsessions via apps are hard to detect, requiring vigilance that's challenged by teen resistance to measures like digital detox. Social difficulties include stigma around family intervention, delaying action when needed. The internet amplifies alienation, for example by distancing biological parents further through reduced in-person contact, making holistic protection even tougher. What would you do if you noticed uncomfortable behaviors between siblings in your family? Do you think parents should monitor teen interactions more closely in blended households? How has the internet changed your connection or children or family? Could early intervention have changed the outcome in this case? Should cruises have better child protection protocols, like real police on board? Why do you think family violence often goes unreported until tragedy? If you were Heather, how would you seek justice for your child? Do juvenile protections help or hinder cases like this? What signs of distress in teens should parents never ignore? Could negligence charge against parents be fair in family harm cases? As we've wrapped up gathering the details on Anna Kepner's case for today's analysis, we hope she receives the justice she deserves. A bright young woman whose life was cut short in such a tragic way. This episode's breakdown ends here, but many mysteries linger, like the full toxicology results and any potential charges against the stepbrother. We'll keep monitoring for new developments from the FBI. Join us in the next video as we dive deeper into similar cases and updates. Thanks for watching.